our government can't do everything for us, right? I mean,
Right.
they can do a lot, and there's a lot of things that we as people would would expect out of our government, but they can't do that all by themselves. And this is where nonprofits come in, right? This is where our veterans whose mission is to continue to serve even after service, right? They continue to serve. It's ingrained in us. It's the thing that they teach us. We
Yes.
go out and we look at, is there more that we can be doing? And the answer should be yes.
Up for day. It's your innovation coach, Rob Jackson, and welcome to another edition of the Innovate Guam Podcast. Podcast where we explore all things innovation, technology, and improvement related to the island of Guam. Don't forget to like, subscribe, and follow me on YouTube, Facebook, LinkedIn, Instagram, and Substack. My podcasts drop at the beginning of each week. Also, be sure to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of each month. All right, today's guest is a man whose public story sits right at the intersection of service, community, advocacy, veterans issues, and now public leadership. Anthony Taijeron is a Guam native, a veteran who served 5 years in the United States Army and 6 years in the Guam Air National Guard. And he's the president of HMI, a veteran founded nonprofit that has become the island's most visible grassroots forces, helping veterans navigate claims, benefits, outreach, and access to care. Under his leadership, HMI has helped grow boot camps, coaching sessions, and symposium style events that connect veterans and their families to real information and real support. Anthony is the co host of Veterans with Benefits on The Point, where he continues to translate complex veteran service issues into plain language for the community. And as of February of this year, Anthony has thrown his hat in the ring and joined a growing field of potential candidates in Guam's 2026 senatorial race. What makes Anthony especially interesting for this conversation is that his message is not really about technology in the abstract. It is about whether technology can actually help people. The background for this episode centers on a simple idea. Government should be easier to use, veteran services should be faster and more accessible. Guam should think of the internet access as a core infrastructure, and innovation should make life better for ordinary people rather than just sounding impressive on paper. Ladies and gentlemen, I give to you Anthony Taijeron. Anthony, welcome to the Innovate Guam Podcast.
Day, Rob. Thank you for having me. We've been on here before, and you do have a really good podcast, which helps us to understand the things that we can be expecting to have with all the innovation and technology that we have ahead of us.
Well, I appreciate you coming back. Obviously, last year we had you on with your right hand, um, Corinna. So
Yeah.
that was really good to find out all about what HMI does for the community and helping veterans. So today we're focusing on you. You, who is Anthony, and why is Anthony running for Guam legislature? So let's start right there. For listeners meeting you for the first time, who is Anthony Taijeron? Give us a personal story behind the name.
So my name is Anthony Taijeron. I'm from the village of Maleso. I've actually moved a little bit closer to the north. Today I live in Santa Rita. I've spent about the same amount of time growing up in Maleso as I now spent here in Santa Rita. Now, I'm originally born and raised down there. Of course, I'm named after my grandfather. So I come from a local family of six, three boys, three girls. We had one a single earner family member. My dad was a police officer. Um, I grew up with my siblings, went out to the military, had a family of my own, came back home, and became a police officer myself. And then from there, I joined the Air Guard years after, and in between that, of course, there were other things that I was doing, like I did some work with the U.S. Marshal Service. I did some work with some of the businesses out here. So me as a person here on this island, of late, most folks know that I've been an advocate for our veterans out here. And when we sit
Yes,
with our veterans and we talk to them, we learn of the different things that might be going on. And many of those struggles that they have are struggles that many of us see on a regular basis as residents here on our island. And I'm sure we would like to take care of not having too many of those issues and seeing how our government can make those a little bit more bearable for our residents.
absolutely. So, tell the listeners, what led you into military service, and what things did you get out of your military service in terms of lessons learned?
So my grandfather on my mother's side, he's a he was a retired Navy veteran. So that he was one of the people that would be probably the biggest piece of us joining the service, to include some of my cousins that also joined the service that are my age. My mom's two brothers were veterans. My uncle married to her sister was also a veteran. And in my family, myself, my brother are veterans. And then my brother in law is also a veteran. Today, I have a son in law who's a veteran. So as far as joining the service, out here on Guam, uh, growing up in high school, Father Duenas, they made us take the ASVAB. They made us know that if we decide sometime in the future after we get out of high school, if we wanted to join the service, we'd be ready to join because we've already taken the ASVAB. So that plus the upbringing here, it's almost second nature for us. Also, some of the incentives we get from joining the service. Back in my time, it was Montgomery GI Bill. Having that, was a way for some folks like myself who wanted to get some college paid for. We joined the service, and after service, we could get into college, and that's our college fund at the time. So, you know, fortunate enough for me, I was able to join the service and get some college fund to help me with my college and my education.
Yeah, so deep roots and a tradition of service in your family. Thank you for your service. Thank all of your family members for their service. Um, Obviously, you've gained a reputation in the community for being passionate about veteran service and supporting veterans and making sure that veterans are taken care of. For those who didn't see the previous episode when we had you on with talking about HMI, can you just kind of revisit the origin story of HMI? How did it all come together? Why you were so passionate about kind of driving veteran support and veteran service kind of issues?
Yes, so myself, Matt Charfris, who's a retired Command Sergeant Major, Bill Salisbury, who is also a Marine Corps veteran, and one other person who's not a veteran. His name is Brian Hahn. He was very big in doing and putting together nonprofit organizations, as well as he was a banker from the Fortune 500 companies. So we got together and we were looking at the things that we needed to do. And as three of us were veterans, we started to think about how our veterans could, benefit from programs. And as we sat there, we decided to put that group together. And of course, that's where HMI was uh, founded, and it stands for Ihinano Imagahit Zaniinina. That's the way, the truth, and the light in English. So HMI is actually the Chamorro version of the name. So through doing that, we looked at how we could assist more veterans, being that three of us were from a veteran background. And then we used Brian's Fortune 500 background and putting together nonprofits as a way to help us to get started. From there, we decided to do a few more things. We started out kind of slow. We didn't have no money. We started doing outreach, going to different villages, talking about what's to come. One of the funny things about being able to go out and talk to the villages, when we first went out, we were kind of told by some of the people, "Hey, we don't need another veterans organization on Guam," and that was a little bit disheartening at the time. And I think more it was like, why do we need another one? So if you
What
can
time
understand,
frame was this you're talking about?
it's probably 2020, so 6 years ago.
Okay.
Yeah, and that's about how long we've been in existence. So that whole idea of why do we need, it was a bit disheartening, and I was under the impression that everything that we were thinking about doing was already taken care of by everyone else that was in existence. Only to find
Yeah.
out that they probably needed a little bit more of what we were doing, and it's evident in the way that we have really reached out to a lot of our veterans that needed a lot of help. And it looks like we're more of a complement to what's in existence. We'd like to think that we're probably the leaders, but being the leader, it doesn't always have to be being in front. I think being the leader probably means a little bit more about trying to find ways to bring everyone together, help each of the organizations that are there to see the benefit of each other rather than dismissing people. Instead of being exclusive, maybe as veteran organizations, we need to be more inclusive. And, if we're fighting a big enemy, right? And if that enemy might be the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs, when I say enemy, I mean, I'm talking about the challenges, not the department in itself. And if these
Yes.
organizations can group together and utilize all the training and disciplines and what we were taught, through our trainings, and apply it more towards finding ways to take care of our veterans out here, I think we do ourselves a big service by doing that. So, as far as our organization coming together, this is where we kind of started. We talked about going after grants. I don't believe we've got a grant. We may have gotten one small one locally. Applying for federal grants, we did not get any federal grants. We don't get any money from any of the other other government agencies out there. Um, our our organization gets money from veterans that we're taking care of. A lot of our business folks, like someone like yourself and your podcast and the Most Services agency, as well as Ambrose, as well as uh, the American Legion, Dr. Akoma's clinic at Hebzibah, JTC. We get help from many different places to help our veterans. Many of these folks are veteran related services. These are ways where our organization gets help and then gets our veterans to be taken care of. Then our veterans, in turn, also come and help. So there's a big network there. We get a lot of help from our veterans and a lot of help from our volunteers and our folks that are supporting us.
Yeah, Anthony, that's really great. All of the stuff that HMI does. You all have really been known for like boot camps and all your outreach into the villages and stuff like that, the coaching, the symposiums. For someone who has never attended one of your events, Can you tell me what it looks like? Some of those boot camps or a symposium. What does it look like if you were to attend?
So first, let's start with the boot camp. So the boot camp is pretty much 3 day. Three. We do it usually in the evening. And when we're there, we talk about all the different parts of the VA claims. We talk about 38 CFR. We talk about M21-1. We talk about how we see the breakdown of what the U.S. Department of Veterans Affairs is. When we're in there, we kind of get our veterans to see how veterans just like themselves are also in the same predicament, and helping them understand that helps them to feel less intimidated by the system and feel that they can accomplish this. So that would be day one. Now day two, we go into forms. We usually have Dr. Akoma come out and tell us a little bit about how VA disability is handled by the VA using medical evidence. So that helps our veterans understand that, hey, I can tell these people anything I want all day long. And if I don't have the medical evidence to support it, it's going to be a uphill battle for them. So that would be day
Right.
three. Now, we also do exercises where we show them how they fill out the hard copy forms to submit their claims, and how to do it if the system is down. We talk to them about accessing the system, which probably is something more related to this segment or to your podcast, because that deals a little bit with technology, and we'll talk about that in a little bit. Now, the third day is talking about um, how to do well when you're in your CMP exam. So a CMP exam is usually the exam where the VA sends a rep out here, or an examiner, usually a nurse practitioner, once in a while a doctor or a physician assistant. And their job is to determine whether or not you have the conditions that you filed for. And as they're doing that, they're also listing down the severity, the frequency, and the duration, as well as the
Yep.
social impact and occupational impact. And all these are all used and considered when rating you for what your disability might be. So that's just the first part. And a lot of these things that we're presenting to them, many of our veterans have never heard. There's also going to
Wow.
be a part on there where, even though the veterans may have heard these things, the amount of information coming at them is pretty extensive. And
Yeah.
for them, maybe one, two, three. I've heard people coming to our boot camps 7 times and still learning something new every time.
Yes.
Plus, there's a lot of updates that come out. So, we try to stay abreast of that. We're always around the doctor. So, he as well is looking at how veterans are impacted as his patients, and how we can help them when it comes to explaining to the VA the proper way to get their medical evidence across. Now, again, that's just our boot camps. Our symposium consists of one day of the boot camp, or else we do it on the afternoon side of the boot camp, and it's usually 3 days. Now, in the symposiums, what we've done is we've gone out and we've asked folks like DISIT to come out, Social Security. We ask GSAT, and we Guam Legal Services, Elder Care Justice, and we bring all these folks that provide service. We ask folks like the Teason office. We've invited Dr. McDermott and their team from CBOC, and essentially the veterans get to go to these desks and speak to these people. At the same time, we have these folks do some presentations. So anytime a veteran is there attending these events, they're able to ask questions. And even more than that, they're able to go to the people directly and ask them questions after the presentations are over. But I think the biggest part there is being able to have everybody listen and then ask questions so that we get to learn even more about what services are available to us. And even though they're duplicated out there, for example, DISIT takes care of individuals with disabilities, and many times our veterans don't think they're individuals with disabilities. And there should be some funding and services over at DISIT that veterans should be able to avail of at the same time as any other available services, for example, that the VA may have. So CBOC may have services, DISIT may have services. We may need some
For
legal
those who
services.
don't, who might not know, what is DISIT?
It's a division of integrated services for individuals with disabilities.
Okay, and tell the folks a little bit about who DISIT is and what they do.
So DISIT was formed by the government of Guam, and I think it may have, if I'm not mistaken, it may have been our current governor that put it together. Now, at some point, they were seeing a lot of gaps in services for individuals with disabilities. So through legislation, they put together DISIT, which is a Guam organization that provides services to folks with disabilities. And through them, there are programs in there where there could be social workers to help. There'll be other programs within DISIT that our individuals with disabilities can avail of. So I'm not as well versed on exactly the programs they have, but they often put it out so that our veterans, if they need services that they're not receiving from the VA or anywhere else, they're able to go to DISIT, and DISIT will try to take care of them.
Yeah, I was really just looking for an overview of that, and that was a great overview. But I tell you, I get really excited to keep hearing about all the things that HMI does through like the boot camps and the symposiums, and what you described there is just huge. I mean, you think about the boot camps, you actually have experts going out to the people where they live in the villages and stuff and conducting this boot camp, going through all of the technical details to help them file their claim, to help them navigate this piece. And then with the symposiums, it's you're bringing together all of these different helping agencies from who provide all of these different services to help veterans, and they're there, they're talking, and not only are they giving presentations, but they're also available for veterans to engage with one-on-one. That's huge. Tell me, was there any organization doing this before HMI? And since HMI has been doing it, has there been other organizations who've jumped on the train?
So what I know today is that there are different organizations out here whose missions are to provide outreach, and some of those organizations, like the Taijeron office, they are usually directed by the Hawaii office, and they usually come out here every 3 months or so.
Veterans
Right.
Administration, Federal Veterans
Yes,
Administration.
that's correct. And
Yes,
and they team up with our local uh ASEAN office, right? That's our state office, is the same comparison to, like, for example, the state of California's
right.
VA office. So these folks team up and they do it quarterly. And then of course, there's still some events that they're
Where
putting
do they
together.
do it? I haven't seen um much advertising about that. What do the numbers look like? Because that was kind of my next thing, to kind of
Uh-huh.
what was the growth and participation that HMI has seen since you started the boot camps to where you are right now? And same thing with the symposiums. Since you started the symposiums to what it is right now, what do those numbers look like?
So so our numbers, when we initially started this early on, good 6 years ago, we filled up, for example, typical size lobby, maybe 10 by 10 room. We filled it up with like 10 to 15 veterans. That's our beginning. And then as soon as we started getting like more than 15 people, we figured out we couldn't fit in that room anymore. So we had to go to American Legion. And by the time we
Wow.
got to American Legion, so that would be boot camp 1 to 4. So that's how quickly it grew. And from
Wow.
boot camp 4 to 14, I want to say, or 15, we were at the American Legion. And in the American Legion, we had to walk upstairs. And I think we started getting upwards of 20 to 30 from boot camp 4 to boot camp 14. So we decided we needed to move out of the American Legion, and we started leaning on the mayors of the different villages. And then we started to be able to get, the 30 to 40, 50. We get as high as 80, almost 100 people when we get up to places like Jigo, and we get into places like Dededo and Tamuning. Those are very large populated areas
Large
of
villages.
veterans.
So,
Yes.
yeah,
And
large
and
villages,
besides that,
large populations. Yeah.
right, just because they're held up in Jigo or Dededo or Tamuning, right, we still have people that travel from, the central part of the island or the southern part to go up and take advantage of the boot camps up in those areas. So they're, just because you're from that village or you're not doesn't mean you can't go there. So that's something that, we can actually allow other veterans to come up there and participate.
Yeah, Anthony, with those numbers and what you saw for the growth, starting off with just like 10, 15 folks and then growing up to 50s, upwards to 100 people, it validated that there is a need for these kind of services out there and that veterans are hungry for it. They responded in numbers. And I'm assuming you're getting these kind of numbers steady state or you continue to grow, correct?
Yeah, they're still, our numbers still continue, and that's what we need, to include. We're also having not just veterans, we also have like our active duty or our guard and reservists who are about to get out of service into retirement, or just exiting service. So this is very important for them, and we impress upon them how some of us who have navigated in the past didn't pay too much attention. So what we're doing is, we're hoping that by educating our existing service members on the way out, that they don't have to have that uphill climb, and we continue to teach them. And I think they're moving towards that as well in the service, right, where they're really trying to have a really strong fighting force. Not that we didn't have one in the past, but I think we're learning that the same way we treat our special forces or special operations folks, where we we bang them up really hard, with the stress from training and preparation for combat, that if they get injured along the way, it's not about hiding the injury more so than it is to get that injury healed up and get them back to 100%, so that when they're out there fighting, they're not at 96 or 95%. They're at 100% ready for battle. So that's something they're
Yeah,
doing today. So that's a good
yeah.
thing.
Yeah, correct. And I talk to lots of veterans that I come across that, we have a tendency to be so mission focused and mission oriented while we're in. So I we end up doing what I call hip pocket
Yes.
write-ups, hip pocket discrepancies, right? So we know this an issue with us, but we don't want to bring ourselves out of the fight, right?
Yeah.
To kind of do the downtime and the kind of treatment that we need for it. We kind of just slap a band-aid on it and keep moving because the mission has to go. But emphasizing to those transitioning folks that during your transition is the time where you've got to slow down and identify all of that stuff. No matter how small it is, how no matter how insignificant you think it is, this is the time to put all of that on the table as you're doing your transition into separation or retirement, because all of that needs to be documented. It need to be it needs to be addressed. It needs to be validated. It needs to be put in your records, and you deserve the care because yeah, you're young, you might be relatively young when you first do that transition or whatever, but now that thing that's very minor that you thought was not worth your time in 10 years, 20 years, 30 years, it becomes a major issue that's
Yes.
affecting your quality of life. And you need to have that addressed rather before afterward the fact.
And to add to that, right, Rob, we look at technology today, right? So and that's part of what we're doing here, right? These days our service members are equipped with a telephone. They're equipped with laptops and computers, right? So if they
Yes.
need to do something to take note of it, right, they don't need to put that entry into, for example, a logbook somewhere, right? And then take you
Yeah.
years to go find where it's at, right?
No, so I think all of that shows that there is um, an unmet need out there on island. Your the growth in the number of veterans that are coming out shows that there's an unmet need on Guam that HMI is serving or addressing. But just kind of overall, what has veterans issues taught you about um, Guam that maybe today's policymakers might be missing?
So when we sit down with our veterans and we talk to them, right? There's it's more than just veteran issues, right? There's
Yes,
any number of things that they might be dealing with. Now, if we can make their veteran issues a little bit better, then it helps them to deal with other issues within their family or within their whatever it is that they're dealing with, right? So that's one of the reasons we try to impress upon our veterans that when getting to these benefits and getting to these services will help you. And once it helps you, it helps your family. And when it helps your family, it helps the community. And if we can
right,
keep doing that, things can only get better from there. Because if we're taking care of our veterans, then now they have a better chance of taking on whatever it is that comes their way. But if they're already having a hard time with their claims, it just adds on to more of the stress that's going on. Uh, I'll share a story if I can. Just this morning, I
go
got a
ahead.
call. I'm sorry. Go ahead.
Say, go ahead.
All right. So I got a call from a veteran, and he told me, he goes, my son got 100%, and he said, but that was so quick. And I said, well, it doesn't matter what had happened or the way it happened, as long as he got the benefits, right? And I'll
Right,
share with you that this particular veteran, his son was having some hard times, and he continued to tell me that he was in combat, and he served in combat and saw a lot of things that were really tough out there. When he returned home from combat, he started to have issues that put him into substance abuse and put him into the wrong crowd, and he just ended up not having a good outcome. So when he finally was able to sit with his son and tell him, "Hey, here's some paperwork to fill out, and let's get this going," he finally did. And when he turned it in, he he got a automatic 100% from his disability, from his mental health conditions from combat. And this kind of veteran, right, would not have been found or been easily assisted. He was falling through the cracks every angle he was turning. And if we can capture these folks before they, start having a hard time, I mean, just this in and of itself will help this veteran, feel his purpose that, hey, I served my country and I had a difficult time, but my country has now given me back my life by providing me with compensation and providing me with medical care. Now I can go out and take care of my children, go out and help my parents who are now helping me, right? And you just look at
yes,
that whole family fabric really developing and becoming really what do you call it, more wholesome as a result of doing that. And otherwise we may not have captured him, and that's something that we don't ever want to happen to what's going on out there with our veterans. That's why we got to capture them. We got to use technology to help us with that.
right. And it's so important. to educate people because a lot of non-veterans see veterans issues as a separate, small niche area. We've got to show them the bigger impact to the overall community, um,
Yes.
both in terms of negative impact as well as potential positive impact to the community. That's why everyone should care about these veterans issues, not just veterans. It's a bigger than just veterans um, there. So um, I tell you, the other thing that I think about is that a lot of times people just focus on the physical injuries and the
Right.
physical ailments, and that's what gets attention. But more and more, our young people have hidden mental and emotional kind of issues that need just as much, if not more, treatment than the physical ailments. And if those go uh, untreated,
Yes.
unaddressed, or whatever, there are negative impacts that are going into the society and into the community that we don't want. We want those to be proactively addressed just as well as the very visible physical elements.
You're absolutely right. And you know, doing work with our veterans and not necessarily leaning on the mental health side of it as much, right? What we found is, so when we talk about those folks that have done suicide, um, they usually are folks that don't have any means to resources such as funding and medical care. So even though we are not the direct you know suicide prevention, suicide awareness group, right, that's not our forte. We don't tell people that's exactly what we do. What we're finding is that if we take care of the things that we're doing, that will get rid of things like the suicide awareness and suicide prevention, because now they have benefits which equates to compensation and funding money in their pocket, number one. And number two, they start getting care from the CBOC. And you know, even to just be heard, just be told that there's a chance for you to get help, that starts putting you in a very good position to seek that service. But many a times the information's not getting out. We have a lot of social media, but a lot of our social media hasn't reached out to our veterans, and maybe that could be something that we need to be working on. Should we be finding ways to get phones into the hands of veterans, maybe computers into their hands, and access to these types of equipments and devices, right? So that now we can reach them, find them, and have them connect with us, even through just a cell phone, right? Even through a
Right.
computer. Because if we can do that, right, we're talking about innovation and we're talking about technology, and that's going to be the way to improve what we're doing, even as HMI or any other organization helping veterans out there.
Yeah. So important to set up our community veterans for access to the CBOC, or the community-based outreach clinic that's run by the Veterans Administration. That takes care of their medical care. And think about it, that's kind of a relief off of GMH and GRMC, who
That's
has
right.
even enough of a big workload in terms of patient care requirements. Um, you got to also think about the Veterans Administration's community-based outreach clinic, or the CBOC, as a provider or key provider on island uh, to take care of our folks and keep them healthy.
Yeah, and you know, with that being said, right, our government can't do everything for us, right? I mean,
Right.
they can do a lot, and there's a lot of things that we as people would would expect out of our government, but they can't do that all by themselves. And this is where nonprofits come in, right? This is where our veterans, whose mission is to continue to serve even after after service, right, they continue to serve. It's ingrained in us. It's the thing that they teach us. We
Yes.
go out and we look at, is there more that we can be doing? And the answers should be yes. And this is where, again, as we spoke about earlier, if we're expecting that somebody's going to come down and spoon feed us all these things, we're going to be in a world of hurt. We need to start coming together, working with each other, and taking care of those that are in need, right? And that's what they teach us
Yes.
in service. And that's
Yes.
not just our veterans, that's our entire community. So if we can start doing that, and of course leverage technology, right? All the things that, again, we talked about, right? If a if we could find a grant that would allow technology to get into the hands of our veterans specifically, right? That might be useful again. So yes, that's definitely what we got to be doing.
Yeah. All right. So let's go ahead and switch gears now and transition
Okay.
to, you know, why now? You're throwing your hat in the ring to run for Guam legislature. Um, like I said, a very big cast of um, potential candidates for senator. What made you convinced that this was the right time to step from community advocacy into the political arena?
So there'll be many ways that this question can be answered, but let's try to give it the best that we can, right? So when I
Okay.
first started when I first started talking to veterans, right, I gave them a mission. I said, hey, you got to work on your claim. You got to own it, right? You got to come out and do these things. And many of them, were very happy about being able to get to where they're at, and many of them appreciated it. And they looked at me and they said, hey, your mission is to run for senator. And I don't know who started this mission, but this mission continued to grow. And we've been getting even more of our veterans behind the fact that we got to do more. Maybe we got to do the same things that we've done with HMI and apply it to our entire island and our community. And of course, we'll always have the help of our veterans there to support that move. I've thought about running in the past, and it's one of those things that many people out there may have thought to try and do. Um, Me being a little bit more out in public these days and meeting with a lot of the leaders, meeting with a lot of the people that are talking about the difficulties they might be having and asking for me to find solutions, right? We're already doing that work. The things that we're doing today are already things that we start touching on and helping our veterans with. And what better way for us to take what we're already doing and take it into the legislature? And of course, running for office would be the next step for trying to improve things even more. So there's the why now.
So let me play devil's advocate uh, with you, right? So
Sure.
when somebody hears all of this, right, potential voter, do they immediately go in their mind and say, well, Anthony's just going to be a single issue candidate. He's a single issue politician. What's the difference between Anthony, the veterans advocate, and Anthony, the potential senator? Are you just going to still be a one issue kind of politician, or are you going to, what are you going to do to take care of more than just veterans?
So if you see my background has the military in it, it has law enforcement, it has federal government attachment through my being with the U.S. Marshal Service, and then I've been out doing advocacy of late and for veterans. And as I had mentioned earlier, when we're sitting there speaking to the veteran, right, the veteran usually has a family with them attached, and that family is in the community. So many of the things we do, unbeknownst to us, we talked about mental health. And by taking care of mental health, it spreads all the way around the full spectrum of taking care of that, takes care of most of the other things that are related to any medical needs or care that they have. Now, again, that indirectly impacts the now burdened GMH and GRMC. If we keep our veterans healthy, that's one less person that needs to go in there. If we bring money in from the VA to take care of our veterans, now we start signaling to the federal government that, hey, our veterans are here and they need help. Even right now, the numbers growing are showing an impact on people, businesses out there that have to go get have to hire employees so that they can care for these veterans. So the numbers of
Right.
veterans seeking services. So the effect is almost a domino effect by taking care of our veteran. Funding comes in, there's care that's needed, so there's employment that's there. And you could take it even as far as our University of Guam right now has, a bunch of veterans that are attending up there. That's funding that's keeping the university rolling, because we got our veterans up there taking care of, their education needs. So every piece of our veteran that they touch is really just something that, is gonna be helping all the way around. So we start with the veteran, it impacts their family, and then it impacts the community. And there's more to that. Even in that discussion alone, we talk about the veteran, we talk about healthcare, we talk about economy and jobs. So if we're talking about, am I just going to be just all about veterans, you can see that along the way all these areas are touched. So it's not just about the veteran, it's about everything else around it, and everything surrounding it is everything that our community needs help with as well.
Yeah. So let's go ahead and continue to go wider than the veteran. Let's talk about technology kind of thing. One of the clear themes that you've always had, and what you've always said, is that technology should help people. Define that for us. What does that mean personally to you? That technology should help real people and really help real people.
So I'll go back to a little bit of the veterans and how we've been dealing with them, and I think we touched on it earlier. So when we first started helping our veterans, what we were doing was, we were doing a lot of hard copy. So we'd fill out the form on the computer, right? We help the veterans see, hey, this is your form, this is what you're filling out, and they get on there, they get that paperwork filled out with all the different conditions that they have. And then from there, they're looking at their conditions and their paperwork. They print it out and then they sign it. And then from there, we help them to fax it to the VA. So that was our early days of dealing with the VA and paperwork. Then we started looking into what's known as e-benefits and the va.gov. And from there, a year and a half or so later, we started jumping onto the e-benefits, jumping onto the va.gov, id.me, I think it's login.gov, and there might have been one other one. So helping our veterans to go online, helping them to create their account and access their account for the things that they need to do for their claim and their benefits. That's a true picture of going from hard copy to technology and how it's going to help people, right? So that in and of itself has been something that's been very useful. We talk about AI. That's something very new here, and throughout the United States, even throughout the world, right? Everyone's jumping into AI. Now, AI is still in its infancy. A lot of people might think, oh, we know what's going on. We still don't, but it's a very powerful tool. And 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 that tool, right, is something that we have been using as well. And that tool has developed, we've been using it for the last 3 years to help us generate statements for our veterans, help them understand what's going on. And just like us, the VA has been using AI. They talk about using that, and we're matching them by using AI as well to help us facilitate our veterans in getting the things that they need, finding medical evidence, finding medical research, finding, M21 and 38 CFR regulations that apply, VA case law. these are the things that when you apply that to your statements and you get a better understanding of, hey, this information is what I need for my claim. By the way, we get all that using technology. Because today, if you ask me to, you know, recite to you something, I'm not going to open up a book and show it to you. We're going to jump online and we're going to see
Yeah.
that that what you're talking about, and we can read it. And then, we're able to take that and find out inside of the networking and the underpinnings of the VA, you know, different data that exists and research, and we take that and we use it and help our veterans to say, hey, based on what we know, this is probably something that can help you. So right off the bat, just dealing with veterans, those are some of the things that help us to understand them, and it's a use of technology and innovation today that helps us to push forward with what our veterans need every day.
Yeah, I love, Anthony, your practical approach to technology and the way that you keep it always on point, right? That innovation is not just another buzzword. What we needed to do is actually help people in a real way with real problems and stuff. Now, one of the other things that you're also known for saying, I'm gathering up all of your quotes here. You've
Uh-oh.
always said that government should be as easy as online banking. Paint that picture to
Yes.
us. Like, what should uh, a 21st century government look like uh, in comparison to what we do in terms of 21st century online banking?
If you walked into the Tizen office or the Assen office, right, you try to find how to speak to the customer service reps there and ask them questions about the things that you need to know about applying for your benefits and getting all that information up front. These days, if you create a va.gov account, right, you'll be able to find all this information out. Now, it's not that easy anyway, but still, you have the ability to do that on your own. You have the ability to say, hey, um, I need to know what my current rating is. I need to find a specific letter. So even today, as we have the veteran service officers and representatives that exist, there's still the ability for a veteran to do this on their own. Now, that requires a little bit of education, a little bit of practice, and having access to the different uh, types of equipment, and like phones or computers and internet. So this is something that, if we're able to get the government to provide some of this access, even if it's through our mayor's offices, just to start, then we'll have our veterans able to pop in, maybe jump on a computer, take a look at what they need to, if they have a phone. And a lot of times for their va.gov, their idme.gov account, right, they're going to still need a telephone, and they're going to need an email address. And if we can get those few things into their possession and have them able to access those, that makes it so much easier for them to to show that government can be easily accessible, and show how they can do that. So
All right.
that's one way.
So let's go broader than just veteran services. What
Okay.
other specific services would you want to consolidate into some kind of one-stop digital government portal? What other opportunities do you see?
So like today, our Department of Revenue and Tax is having a hard time with their current system up there. We need to figure out a way to ensure that that system is still being accessed to some extent. So if we talk about how we're going to get to those systems, we got to kind of make it almost like the way we treat our roads and our lights and all the other infrastructure. If we are able to have internet, have the access, and have the technology available for us, that would definitely be a way that we can start allowing other people to do this, going to the mayor's offices, right, to get, for example, things that are considered residency forms, talking about that they reside in that village, right? That's a form that you can get. I think over at the Guam Police Department, you might be able to jump in and get your police clearance. You can do it for over the courts for your court clearances, right? So these types of things are not people waiting in line anymore. They're more about being able to jump online. Now, with that being said, we're going to need a lot of security around that, and I think we're getting a lot of help with that today
Right.
by a lot of folks like yourself and cybersecurity type outfits that are out here on Guam to help us to ensure that our systems are all protected and safe, and as well as our information.
Okay. So another theme in your framework is that no one on Guam should be left behind, right? So if we put out all of this technology, what does digital exclusion look like, right? Because you were talking about it, not necessarily everybody has access to the digital tools. So, what does digital exclusion look like on Guam today, and where would you estimate, there are people being left behind because they don't have access to the technology?
So if we look at things like just like our roads, because we consider it infrastructure, right? There are roads on our island that are maybe not primary or secondary, nor they may not even be tertiary. These roads are usually gravel roads that the government or the owners have gone in and created themselves to allow them access to their properties sometimes. So with the same thing in mind, if we're not able to get coverage in our remote areas here on our island, right, for whatever reason, if we could maybe have our tech companies provide those MiFi's or Wi-Fi, remote Wi-Fi that you're able to connect to and access, something like that could be helpful. And we could start with the village mayor's offices. Again, these places are the central area that most people will go to, and then they'll be able to determine what areas are having a hard time. If we even just look as far as close back as our Mawar typhoon, right, that hit us not too long ago, our communication systems were terrible. They were down, and I think there was only one carrier that was able to help us, and we couldn't even merge the three other accounts. Three other providers into one, and that's a very sad state of affairs when it relates to technology and community coming
Because it's
together.
about readiness and resilience,
Okay,
right? You
that's
know
right.
that Guam is typhoon um,
Prone,
vulnerable. Yeah,
yes.
typhoon prone, typhoon vulnerable. Why aren't we building technology to address and prepare for that likely scenario?
Exactly, and I think in the past we've reached out to some of the folks over at the Homeland Security, talking a little bit about what they call COOP, continuity of
Yeah,
operations, and
yeah,
and I've spoken to one agency who told me they had their COOP available, and they put it together themselves. They weren't led by, for example, the entire government putting one together. Now it's it seems like it should be standard operating procedure to have a coop, right? Because again, we're typhoon prone, and with that, of course, comes exactly what you talk about. Are we able to get back up? Because we have technology that's waiting for us to access. But if all our systems are down, we don't have any power, we don't have any way to get to where we need to, then we're just sitting ducks waiting for anything to happen. So hopefully we
right.
can work on that.
All right. All right. Let's shift back to a favorite topic. When you were on last time with Karina talking about HMI issues, we talked a lot about veterans' health issues, but broader than just veterans' health, um,
Uh-huh.
with everything going on with GMH. Uh,
Yes.
Guam's healthcare issues are front and centers. What has your advocacy for veterans' health issues taught you about the uh, bigger lessons of Guam's healthcare issues and challenges?
So if I'm hearing this correctly, what I discussed earlier with some folks, and I think we may have discussed it here as well, is Guam usually has to go to Hawaii when it comes to our veterans seeking services, and I think that might be the same for some other folks, even in the civilian world. And I think we need to start looking at ways to improve that. I was just on a Zoom earlier speaking to some folks about this specific issue, and many times the VA looks at us and says, "Oh yeah, no worries, we'll get you to do telehealth," right? And yet
Yes,
in places like anywhere small town USA, you can have a VA office and hospital and healthcare in one city or county, and you drive an hour away to the next one, sometimes less. You can drive 2 hours, you'll be in the next state. So the access to care is available, readily available. And rather than maybe putting all the telehealth here, why don't we put the telehealth there and deploy some of those human assets out to Guam every once in a while and build that service out here, and maybe look at how we can start getting local folks to jump in on this and take care of us. I don't know that we're really looking at building our healthcare uh, uh, infrastructure out here, and because we're so far away, a lot of times we're not being supported as well as we can. But I think that with a lot of technology, with a lot of outreach, and having our veterans talk about the problems they're having, then we can start looking for the solutions to start changing this. In the past, many of them were silent and just sat there and expected that, well, this is the best we can get. And I think we need to change that mentality and start looking at, hey, what truly is available for us? What can we get? If we don't have it and we can't get it, how can we build so that we can get to that piece?
yeah, yeah. All right, yeah, that's good. Let's shift gears and go on to another topic for workforce development, right?
Sure.
So, one big theme that we all share is that our best and brightest here on Guam shouldn't have to feel like they have to leave Guam in order to get a good paying job and to raise a family, right? So, where do you see the biggest opportunities for Guam to train local people into better paying work that will keep them here? So they get educated, trained, developed here, and they stay here, and we can provide good paying jobs for them to stay here and raise their family. What big opportunities do you see for us to develop those well-paying jobs?
So I would venture to say that when we talk about these well-paying jobs, right, we have members of the service that are about to get out who are able to get into one of the one of the programs called Skill Bridge, and this is
Oh,
something that our good friend over at Amentum, Chuck Hazard, has been talking
yeah,
about when he comes out to talk at the symposiums and the summits. So something like that is a way to help keep these folks here and allow them to have the opportunity to get into work that's already here, number one, and number two, it offers them the opportunity to fit into a great outfit like a large veteran, I mean a federal contractor on island, and the pay there seems to be very attractive. And then there are larger companies, so there's a way for them to grow. Um, that's one thing that we have. Our other friends over at JTC, they have tie-ins to, for example, folks like Amentum, and they provide the workforce. So our veterans are already starting to do these things. There's a program for our veterans called VR&E. That's also another program that trains our veterans. And again, you have to excuse me. I'm talking about veterans and how we're going to keep them trained and here on our island. Now, I'm sure there are other types of programs that exist for not just our veterans, but maybe for even our civilian folks. Now, um, one of the things we may have to do is get our our GEDA, our Guam Economic Development Authority, to find ways to bring more investors in to the island and open up a few
Yes.
more things that we can do to improve the pot of money that's out here. When I say that, our our economic development, I believe, leans a little bit more on bringing more investors into the island, but we got to make it a lot easier for them. Now, by bringing
Yes.
that investment in, that equates to providing more jobs for our people as well. So um, that helps, even if it's a veteran, even if it's a civilian as well, a non-veteran.
Yeah. One of the big drums that we have beaten over and over again on this podcast, and even in my personal writing and stuff, is that we have a golden opportunity here in Guam to diversify our economy through a defense sustainment driven ecosystem, i.e., that traditionally what we've only focused on is the military construction that comes with the buildup and the additional people who are now spending their money on the economy. Instead, start looking at it in terms of how can we support the technology, the weapon systems, the equipment that the forces are using out here because it's needed. They're all the way out here at the tip of the spear. If Guam
Yes.
could be a hub for maintenance, repair, and overhaul, for logistics, for sustainment of the weapon systems that the Navy, the Marines, the Air Force, the Army are using out here, the war readiness material that they have pre-positioned out here that we take care of and maintain for a future fight. That those could be good, well-paying jobs that would keep Guam's best and brightest here. Do you agree with that?
I absolutely agree with you, and then that's what we got to keep doing. I think when we start bringing our veterans together through programs like HMI and the things we do, believe it or not, we found, like, for example, a veteran over at the that Irie Airlines, right? It's a local airlines, and we had a veteran there, and we brought him out to speak. And Roki, who's not a veteran, he went ahead and spoke about his having to go to Hawaii to get trained and learn all these things, but he's come back home again and he's trying to build his airlines and the airline industry out here. So that's a good signal of that. And supporting that, of course, is our veteran. Now, our veterans that are there may have background that will help them, and they got to apply it outside. So the same way we're trained and provided uh, education in the service, right, on our way out, many of us have to take that and apply it to the civilian world. And maybe we're not as loose, if you will, as how the civilians run, but we just need a little bit of adapting into how these programs run. And we have a lot to offer. As if you ever sit down and talk to the veterans that we have on island, you'd be amazed at the things they've done in service, and and
Yes.
and all that effort.
Yes.
And this, I think you come from the background of really getting the logistics down. You come from the background of getting trained as well, and here you are on this island helping us as well to continue to do the exact same thing you're talking about, keeping our people here, getting them trained up, and creating the jobs that people need around this region so that our people can be there to take advantage of those and trained up for it.
Absolutely, absolutely. So, you know, one of the campaign slogans that I saw in your materials that I really like was you say, I'm not coming from Silicon Valley, I'm coming from service. That's a really strong line. What do you mean by that?
Well, it just means that I'm not Rob Jackson. I'm not, our folks out here that have all the history, and this is not what I do for a living. But I'll let you know that, these advancements in technology and the things that exist for us to innovate with, right? You're at the forefront there, Rob, and by saying that, it tells us that me talking about service, by leaning on this technology and the advancements and innovations, right? It's already started to help us. We're already doing the exact thing you're talking about. We take these technologies and what's available to us, and by doing that, right, it's already improving the lives of the veterans. So, many veterans that are out there may not have access to a phone, they may not have access to a computer. But if we can
Mm,
start developing that and bringing them closer to the use of, these technologies, and hopefully if we can find ways to provide it to them, and there are programs that we could get to get it to them, and start setting these things up, right? That's where you start seeing service. And then we get the smart folks that are are a part of the Silicon Valley types, right? That's the thing that's going to get us to be, hey, we're service. We take from you what you're going to give us, and we apply it to our everyday use and to our community and our people out here.
yeah, yeah. So, as we get into kind of the closing stretch of our podcast
Okay.
episode here, you know, what do you want voters still who are getting to know most about who you are and why they should put their trust in you?
So there's a lot to say about public service, right? And getting out there and being somebody who can do the things that our people want done. They want to be able to trust that if you are able to get into office, that you will do things that takes care of the entire community. So we're
Right.
already doing that work. We're already through HMI helping our veterans to receive access. A lot of times they might be the spouses of veterans who need help. We assist them as well. It could be the children. And by doing these things that we do today, we're also setting those folks up. So when folks are looking at me and wondering what I have done, right? Um, we've already started to impact many lives. We've impacted the economy by bringing them their benefits, by getting
Yes.
jobs that are there for, because a veteran has health care from his claim and his benefits. Now a company, a healthcare provider out there must hire somebody so that they can care for this person. And then our economy starts to move, right? Veterans got money, they spend it in the economy. The economy says, oh,
Yes.
okay, I got paid, my business can move. Then that money goes back around again. So now we're starting to see that economic wheel turn. So if we can do more of that, if we could take what we've done with HMI and maybe apply it to our regular residents out there. I don't see exactly what it is, but the piece that we can use is, number one, education, number two, access, learning what programs are available, and just maximizing them, and getting our entire community to see what they are. And the same way we've done that with our veterans, with the help of our veterans that we've helped, now we can apply that and they can help us on this side, taking care of our entire community.
Yeah, yeah, that's really powerful. And I like the way that you shape that. you've been there at the grassroots level, having real world outreach, real world results and impact. Yes, it's been a small area or a small population of Guam, but that's just kind of a microcosm of what you could do if you had the opportunity. And what I'm hearing is that what Anthony's going to do is one, continue that grassroots approach of reaching out to folks, and you're going to be ensuring access and advocacy for folks as you go out there and continue to try to empower them to be able to make their lives better.
That's correct. And one of the things I've been talking about is giving the power back to the people. We need all our people out there to own this island, to own the government. This is ours. When we say that, we want them to know that they have to be a part of this. The same way we teach our veterans at our events to own their claim. We want the people to know that, hey, we have to own our island, good or bad. If we
Yes.
make decisions that are going to be hard on everybody, we should know that, hey, that's the decision we made. And by letting everybody be a part of that, we can all group together and decide, hey, we may want to try something else. Let's try this. And at least as a group, as a whole, we're now able to come together and push the island forward rather than this bickering and blaming and pointing fingers at, well, you did this and somebody else did that. Yeah, that's all good and great to try to gain your positioning when it comes to election. But at the end of the day, being elected and doing the work that the people want us to do are all predicated upon the fact that it's the people that hold the power, not the leaders.
Yes.
And our people are going to be the ones that should be dictating what we want done. And again, right, it's the whole entire island. We have to take care of our business community, right? We have to take care of our
Yes.
veterans. We have to find workforce development so that it takes care of everyone on the island. So all of these things will eventually touch each other. At the end of the day, what we want to be able to do is, start slowly, take a look at it, and put our best foot forward, look at the best options and find the best solution given. And at that point, we make that decision, and as a whole, we have to live with it. Hey, we all decided to vote on this. If this is what we really want and the outcome isn't as favorable, at least everyone is going to know. The majority will know that, hey, that's what we voted for. Now let's move on. Let's fix it. Let's find a way to get to where we're going to be better.
Yeah. I love the way that you phrase that, power to the people and holding our leaders accountable, because there's so much work that needs to be done here in Guam. There's so many investments that need to be done in our infrastructure and in our people here in Guam, that it's not about ideology, whether you're a Democrat or a Republican administration. Your responsibility is to grab the ball and move it down the field. And at the end of your administration, whether you hand off to same party or the opposing party, you're moving us down the field, and it's now their time to take the ball and move us further down the field. It's something that isn't going to happen in just one administration. You know, we're talking about, what does Guam look like 10 years from now, 20 years from
Yes.
now, 30 years from now? It's going to require consistent investment and hard work uh, to get us to where we need to go.
Yes, sir. You're absolutely right. And we while there's a lot of work to do, right? There's a lot of promise ahead of us, and that's what we got to be looking for is the things that are going to make us better and looking at that and keep our eye on the ball and as you said, right, next administration, keep doing it. And I think this is where a good continuity of operations kind of planning in that regard would maybe have us continue moving the ball forward so that we're not going backwards, and instead we're pushing the agenda forward to get us where we all want to be.
Absolutely. So, wow, Anthony, thank you for all your incredible insights. This was an amazing conversation, just like I knew it was going to be. Um, before I close, do you have any contact information that you like to give the audience, like a campaign website, or if they want to know more about you, your platform, your campaign, where can they reach you at?
Oh my goodness! So right now we're still forming up, and I have a lot of that information. Is it possible I could get that to you later, or would you like?
Sure.
Okay,
Yeah, get that to me later and we'll post it up with the podcast.
sounds good. I appreciate you. Thank you for having me.
No, thank you for coming. Um, you were a great guest, as I knew you were going to be. I learned something, and I hope my audience learned something as well. Remember to follow me on all social media platforms, including Substack. Be sure to like, share, and subscribe to stay up to date on all future episodes. And don't forget to check out my Innovate column in the Pacific Daily News every first and third Friday of the month. Remember, I'll see you next time. And whether you're at work, at home, or play, always innovate. Thank you.